Chapter 12. The Road to Freedom. The Six-Stage Cycle of Transition. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, best-selling author and recipient of more than 25 honorary doctorates, identified 5 stages of transition relating to death and dying. The cycle of grief and loss, as it is called, was initially devised to assist people to undergo a healthy grieving process after bereavement. Subsequently, it has been adapted as a tool to aid transition through all types of loss. The feeling of loss is commonly reported by people abstaining from alcohol. Not simply the loss of alcohol, but losses pertaining to the underlying issues that give rise to destructive drinking. For example, loss of relationships, loss of identity, loss of childhood, and loss of employment. Consequently, the cycle of grief and loss has become a particularly effective tool for monitoring and measuring progress along the road to freedom. In addition to the 5 stages of loss and grief devised by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, there is one additional transitory stage commonly experienced during the early days of sobriety: the honeymoon period, which generally commences a few months after the acceptance stage. The 6 stages are as follows. 1. Denial. 2. Bargaining. 3. Anger. 4. Depression. 5. Acceptance. 6. Honeymoon period. The 6 transitory stages. What follows is an overview of the 6 transitory stages commonly experienced by people undertaking the transition from alcoholic to alchemist, including myself. The objective of the information is to heighten your awareness as to the things you may encounter, rather than things you will encounter. Do not expect these things to occur. Simply be prepared for them, should they show up, and follow the guidelines suggested to deal with them. Denial manifests as fear, fear-driven, protecting the habit, refusal or inability to face problems, delusion, adherence to the maladaptive beliefs of the ism. For example, alcohol is a cure-all. Escapism, defense against the truth and reality, a coping mechanism for survival. Denial is a defense mechanism designed to protect the alcohol habit when it is perceived as a best friend or cure-all. At this stage, people tend to defend the habit because they are frightened to abstain and face reality. Life is perceived as unbearable without alcohol. They are often overwhelmed by feelings of fear, guilt, pain, or futility, and misguidedly seek refuge in the very thing that causes them: alcohol. Although people in denial are under the illusion that alcohol still performs some positive function, many have crossed the abriactive threshold and experience only destruction and heartache. Bargaining. The what if or if only stage. Common premises. If only this or that wasn't happening, then I wouldn't drink. What if I just have 1 or 2 on a Friday night? What if I stick to beer only? What if I only drink at home? It was just a phase I was going through. I'm in control now. What if I just have the one? I'll never go back to the way I was. How many times have you heard yourself using these phrases? People in the bargaining stage have not accepted having crossed the abriactive threshold, but they have acknowledged that a problem exists. They know they need to do something about their drinking, but they try to soften the blow by believing they can reduce their alcohol intake rather than completely abstaining. Don't be seduced by the maladaptive strategies of your unconscious mind. One drink will inevitably lead to many. Beer will lead to spirits, and drinking at home will lead to losing your house. Don't succumb to bargaining. Control your mind. Don't allow your mind to control you. Anger manifests as, why can everybody else drink normally and I can't? Acceptance of having crossed the abriactive threshold. Recognition that alcohol no longer provides relief from unresolved issues. Feeling betrayed. Looking for a scapegoat to blame. People at this stage commonly become angry at themselves, life events, others, and God. Their anger is often accompanied by feelings of rage, resentment, and confusion. After admitting having an alcohol habit and accepting that bargaining doesn't work, they feel cornered and strike out at those around them. Their fear and frustration often leads to shadow projection, a phenomenon whereby they see their own shortcomings and character defects situated in other people and use them as scapegoats. "It's all their fault," they exclaim. After fruitlessly expending large amounts of energy on directing their anger externally, they turn it on themselves, and it translates to depression. Depression manifests as mourning the loss of a perceived ally, loss of a lifestyle, loss of identity, barrenness, sterility, meaningless, futility, feeling of being deprived. Life without alcohol is awful. Numbness. Exhausted from denial, bargaining didn't work, anger has been exhausted, and so a huge void opens up inside, and depression descends. People often vacillate between the latter two stages, anger and depression, not knowing how to break the cycle. If this state of imbalance persists, relapse usually occurs. Anger and depression are signs that your delusion has ended and reality is setting in. They are indicative of progression, although they may not feel like at the time. When you reach these stages, it is imperative that you seek help with the unresolved issues that underlie your destructive tendencies. This is a prime opportunity to identify and process the root causes of your destructive drinking and eradicate them. Working through your unresolved issues can be an adventure that is both rewarding and enlightening. Don't miss the opportunity. Remember, the most effective way to escape your problems is to solve them. Keep looking forward and remember the infinite possibilities that are now just over the horizon. Progress. Don't regress. Acceptance. No longer deluded by the belief that alcohol is a magical panacea for all problems. Acknowledgement that drinking ends up in persecution and destruction. Desires a better quality of life. Although this stage often brings mental and emotional imbalance, by rising to the challenges it presents, you stand to annul your relationship with the sobriety saboteurs and acquire great strength. The acceptance stage sees reality return. Negative thoughts often infiltrate our minds, giving rise to guilt, fear, pain, and futility. Here are some of the thoughts I experienced during this stage. Remember when you did this or that? You should be ashamed of yourself. All these people paying you compliment. If only they knew what you're really like, they'd hate you. Life's monotonous and boring. I need to escape. This corrosive inner dialogue starts subtly and builds to a crescendo, if we allow it to. Our self-esteem can take a pounding as the sobriety saboteurs set about annihilating our self-perception. With our defenses low, the maladaptive thoughts of the ism starts to creep in. Drink will cure this. Drink cures everything. Hypnotized by this seductive inner voice and laden with feelings of self-disdain, our minds begin to vacillate between enslavement and enlightenment. Drink, sobriety, drink, sobriety, drink, sobriety. Stop, stop, stop. If you should experience any of these symptoms, if you should find yourself teetering on the edge of uncertainty, stop and center yourself. Do not be drawn in. Do not slip back into unconscious processing and regress to your old ways of thinking. You are on the threshold of freedom. A life beyond your wildest dreams is now imminent. Awareness is the key to successfully negotiating this stage. Stay alert, live life consciously. What you're experiencing is not a step backwards. It is an inevitable stage of your growth, a prime opportunity to show the sobriety saboteurs who's in charge and transcend their influence. Rather than recoiling from the negative offerings of the sobriety saboteurs, just allow your inner dialogue to be. Thoughts in and of themselves are ineffectual. It's only when our awareness is consumed by them that they assume power. It's only when we believe them that they take on life. Instead of owning these corrosive thoughts, simply observe them. Remain detached and stay centered in your higher awareness. From this disassociated perspective, notice that the troublesome thoughts are simply fleeting impulses of energy and information. Nothing more, nothing less. Without a power source to sustain them, your awareness, they will abate. Simply watch them arise and dissipate back into the nothingness from where they came. We have 60,000 thoughts a day, and most of them pass unacknowledged. As you remain detached and observe the contents of your mind, repeat the following affirmation to yourself. Today, I allow my life to unfold from the wisdom and intelligence of my indwelling divinity. Continual practice of this technique will see the demise of the sobriety saboteurs. Deprived of the attention that empowers them, they will abate. Subsequently, your inner wisdom will prevail and your mind will return to a state of equanimity. A relaxed mind is a very productive mind. So once equanimity is attained, you're on the road to optimal functioning and manifesting your dreams. Humanness returns. Along with the return of challenging thoughts, the acceptance stage also sees the return of our emotions. This can be a disconcerting experience, a time of intense emotional activity in which our feelings are prone to ebb and flow between contrasting polarities, up and down, high and low, sorrow and joy. Again, this is a normal and inevitable stage of your progression. It tells you that freedom is imminent. Meet it with gratitude, like a pendulum swinging to and fro before coming to rest in the center. Our emotions have a tendency to vacillate back and forth before coming to rest in peace. Emotional imbalance is a sign of your humaneness returning. Years of drinking had rendered you emotionally bankrupt, lifeless, detached, and devoid of purpose. Now, the energy that breathes life into your experience is returning. Give thanks. You are human again. Feelings are an integral part of the human experience. They color and enrich our lives. Embrace your emotions. They are a sign of your humaneness returning. Exercise. Mastering your emotions. Whenever your emotions become turbulent, adopt the same procedure used with your thoughts. Don't become embroiled in them. Simply observe. Don't place value judgments on them. Good, bad, right, wrong, just remain detached and just allow them to be. Place your awareness on the different sensations in your body. Observe the movement of energy. Know that these feelings have resulted from corrosive inner dialogue that depends on your belief in it to survive. Withdraw your belief and they will expire. This powerful exercise has been adopted by our wise forefathers since time immemorial. The honeymoon period. After accepting having an alcohol habit and negotiating the bumpy period described above, life without drink can be a liberating and exciting experience. Problems and unresolved issues are temporarily forgotten and supplanted by a great sense of release. Provisional control is resumed, and the unconscious strategies that drive the alcohol habit lay dormant for a while. This surreal stage is often referred to as the honeymoon period, a time when quitting alcohol appears much easier than ever anticipated. The honeymoon period can last anything from a few days to a couple of years. But inevitably, the trials and tribulations of life do return to challenge us. Remember, we may have stopped drinking, but as yet we have not eradicated the catalysts that give rise to our destructive tendencies. The end of the honeymoon period is commonly associated with relapse. People become complacent, and the sobriety saboteurs weave themselves into the growing disquiet of their minds, ready to mount a psychological ambush. For years, alcohol anesthetized our turbulent feelings and suppressed our troublesome thoughts. Then we crossed the abreactive threshold, and they came flooding back to consciousness. Now, drink serves only to heighten our distress, so we quit. After the short but unpleasant business of withdrawal, our problems temporarily abate as we enjoy the novel experience of life without a drink. Pressure begins to build, however, as loved ones and friends sing our praises and take delight in watching our progress. As each day passes, their expectations rise. Though part of us revels in the praise and respect we're receiving, simmering beneath the surface is often doubt and uncertainty. Fear of letting our loved ones down. What if I relapse? Will I make it? Imagine the devastation if I drank. As doubt and fear begin to veil the initial excitement evoked through the novel experience of sobriety, the honeymoon period tends to subside. When the honeymoon period ends, it can feel like a major setback. But once again, this is an inevitable stage of your progress. It is not natural to stay on a permanent high. That is often a sign of imbalance in which your problems are veiled by denial. The river of life inevitably bounces off the banks of both pleasure and displeasure. Flow with it. Alchemists, like the element of fire, consume every obstacle in their way and use their energy as fuel for themselves. Every obstacle encountered can be transformed onto life-enhancing energy. For example, when we live life consciously, we realize that the underlying fears and doubts experienced during the honeymoon period serve an extremely positive purpose. They prevent complacency from setting in. All that is happening when you come down from the honeymoon period is that you are attaining balance and preparing yourself for the next stage of evolution. The magic is within your grasp now. Stay with it. Conclusion. Rather than being a linear progression whereby one experiences denial, moves smoothly through the honeymoon period, and lives happily ever after. These stages are commonly cyclic. People tend to get so far, then regress back to a prior stage, or start the whole cycle again. Don't be alarmed should this happen to you. You are still progressing. The six-stage process is sieve-like in nature. Each time a loss cycles through the stages, a little more pain is filtered away, and you acquire more strength and wisdom. Remember, there is no failure, only feedback. Should you veer off course, use your experience as feedback. Refine your future strategies in accordance with the feedback you receive, and set course for a life beyond your wildest dreams. The key to moving through this six-stage transition successfully is your attitude. Look at each stage as a logical progression on the road to freedom. Honor your improvement. Though it may be difficult to appreciate it at the time, acknowledge your efforts and know that you are evolving towards your true potential. Move through the stages with a sense of challenge, expectation, and excitement. Know that each discovery you make about yourself propels you towards self-mastery. A healthy person who suffers loss eventually accepts it and moves on. Now, it's your time to move on and harness the infinite possibilities that life has to offer.